And welcome back to How You Living on Edge Radio TV. So today we have our woman power, girl power running for governor of Texas, Miss Deirdre Gilbert. Yes. So question. So Houston had a huge winter storm. Winter storm 2021. And I don't know if it's an infrastructure thing, but I was out of power. People I know were out of power. It was rolling blackouts, people burning stuff just to try to survive.
Families died.
Families died. Absolutely. You know, people sitting in cars and the whole. So as the so what do you think the position of the state of Texas or the governor?
How should they
handle, or what was the problem with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first piece of
especially
the puzzle,
since the hurricane is coming.
Right, we're about to go there.
We're getting
again.
ready to get into the hurricane season and in the hot season where people are going to start needing to use more energy.
Right.
Where they were starting to talk about this again, conserving, and that was one of the questions. And then they kind of, went away a little bit. But I think it may come back, that conversation. One of the biggest issues was no regulatory oversight. Okay, it's dysfunctional, deregulated. Nobody, again, that's the secrecy. See, that's the secrecy in the legislation. Things that were created or things that were done underneath the cover, because
nobody knew about
nobody knew that we weren't on the same grid as everybody else.
Right.
So Texas decided that they wanted to be on their own grid and their own energy power struggle to get whatever they want. I didn't know myself much about ERCOT. So when I heard of ERCOT, yes, and that's the energy reliability. And so when I went to research for myself, one of the biggest things that stood out, they were a 501c4 industry. Not a C3, which is a nonprofit.
Okay.
But a C4 is a lobbying organization.
Oh, wow. Oh, my
So goodness. The first thing I felt was, what is a lobbying arm doing energy? Right? How do you do that? What?
But tens of millions of people at their mercy.
But and how is a lobbying firm or a lobbying organization?
Right.
And it was based up on memberships.
Wow.
And that's another question you ask, and I'm saying, well, who are the members?
Right.
So who are members? And we're talking about lobbying.
Right.
And what did that have to do with energy?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of different pieces.
Was that from the top? Was that decision made from the governor's office?
No.
Okay.
And
wow.
Let me take that back. It was structured. The Public Utilities Commission was over that.
Okay.
But our governor decided that they were going to take away some of the regulatory oversight. And he created a bill and signed off on it.
Yeah. They
probably never thought that anyone would ever find out, because again, a lot of this stuff was secret.
Yes.
A lot of the bills that are being passed are done, what I say, underneath the cover.
Right.
It's not the schoolhouse rock anymore. You remember how a bill used to be
passed? This is a bill.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I showed that.
I love that song.
And I was like, this is not the way it's done.
Right.
In times past, that's the way it was done. But now it's not done like that. It's done underneath the cover.
Right.
And there are a lot of different pieces of people who are involved in the connection.
Yeah.
And so it was a lobbying firm, right, who was connected to what they call cooperatives. And the members of our own legislative leaders who were sitting in our legislative bodies were owners of electric companies. So let's just say you're a part of the legislative body.
So it's all financial.
You own a company.
Always.
You own a company. And you may have some people in your area, you know how in your zip code you can only have a certain company that you could use. Well, that company is probably owned by a legislative leader, right? And he manages that, and then they're all connected to another company. So the members of these companies were receiving what they call capital assets. Okay,
and we're all
capital
so
credits, capital assets. Right? Nobody knew, and I didn't know.
So, do you agree that most of the government is run by lobbyists? Basically,
you always hear that.
Yeah. And not only that, but there is an entity that also during my time, not only for this race, but when Jocelyn's case came about, and there was an entity called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange. In Florida? Well, they're based really in every state house.
It's a filthy entity. I do know that.
They do,
I think I remember that too. I remember hearing about
that. They create all of the legislation that is coming into our state houses. And again, like I said, it used to be the schoolhouse rock thing, but now it's more of ALEC, who creates model legislation, and every state house has someone that sits in their state house that are on a committee. So if there's a housing committee, we have one. Matter of fact, Texas has, I believe, 40 legislative leaders who are part of ALEC.
Wow, that is really something.
Manages those things. So when you see that legislation going to different states, that's why it's so quick. Is because the legislation is actually already created.
They have the pipeline,
and they just all they do is they send it to and they plug it in, and create it to fit their state.
Man, it's so crazy with politics. All these other groups like QAnon, we were concerned about, but that really was.
And this is what they were saying while we were asleep.
Yeah, while you're sleeping, while you're looking at the distraction that they create. They're over here signing things that affect your life for years to come.
Exactly.
And on top of the energy thing, there's a franchise fee.
Oh, wow.
So they have a contract with all of our city councils in every state. And those city councils set your bills for you, for your solid waste and your telecommunications, like your cell phone uses, right? So if you look at your bills, you will notice that there is a franchise fee
all these
that has been actually gone down to the consumers.
Yes.
So they get a bank account.
Still this lobbyist group. It was still under this whole umbrella for the group. And then they have the subgroup, and then they have the subgroup.
And then they have
they charge us.
And then
they can get away with it.
But they get money every
right.
time they pay certain bills, right? You pay your bill.
Right.
Certain amount of that money goes into whatever they want to do, supposedly, to help fix that infrastructure or whatever they did. But if you think about what happened to a lot of the energy companies during this time, a lot of them went bankrupt.
And again, because we were concerned too that bills were going to go. Didn't some people have $5,000, $10,000 bills?
There were advocates who instructed people, especially in Harris County. He said, if you're on auto pay, take yourself off right now because they may bankrupt you.
Yeah, because they actually were charging $9,000,
thousands of dollars.
And so once the cover was pulled back on all this, what's moving forward? What are they doing now, or are they discussing on?
Well, they're discussing. The whole problem is that before all of the infrastructure or all of the things happened and were destroyed, they had an issue some years ago.
Right.
They didn't weatherize.
Right.
They didn't follow what the Public Utilities Commission told them to do. They were deregulated after that.
Okay.
So it was like, you do your thing and we're going to move on. And there was no accountability. Nobody was watching the hen house. All of a sudden you get this winter storm, and now the truth has come out that you were told that there were some issues with our grid that you didn't do anything about.
So you think we're prepared for the hurricane season?
Really, I have no idea.
Okay.
Now, according to the the legislative leaders right now, they're still working on it.
Okay.
And still supposedly coming up with ideas of what they're supposed to do. But your present governor is definitely hiring people who are actually quitting.
Hiring people that are quitting.
Right. I mean, every time he appoints somebody,
right.
Since that happened, they're jumping off the ship. And there's a reason they're jumping off the ship, because it's something much deeper down there that they want to get
sinister.
Right, that they don't want to be involved in.
Right.
And so I think he's just trying to figure out how to maneuver up out of the pit.
Okay.
And try to figure out what he's going to do, because he wasn't even talking about it in the beginning. It was like no conversation until people start asking these questions about who are your members, how did they become members, and all of these companies are going defunct. You don't have nobody. We can't do that. The summer's coming. People are going to need electricity.
Even more electricity, because remember they give away
so
fans, and it's already 90 degrees, and we haven't even hit the heat of the summer.
It's not even officially summer yet.
It's not. So we're going to really have to figure out what that looks like. We have a bunch of bills though, and again, I tell people that it's not what we see on the outside, but it's we need to start looking at the core.
Right.
And like you're saying now, these bills that are coming up, we really need to start looking at the broad language that they're using.
Yeah, especially with unemployment, because we're still basically in COVID and people aren't working. So, but we're going to, once again, another hot topic.
We are back with Miss Deirdre Gilbert, who is running for governor, and we can't wait to hear what you're going to do once you get in there. But one of the topics we talked about during the break was is there a new gun law that was written, bill passed behind our back? I always feel like it's behind our back, because I didn't hear about it till it made the news and it was already signed.
Right. So they called it constitutional carry, and then they used the word permitless. Right? Meaning they didn't have to have a permit. And the confusion always is the language that's used.
So can you tell us kind of what this is?
Okay, so let's just think about constitutional carry. What do you think that constitutional carry means in your mind?
That the Constitution allows me to carry a gun, and so it is written in law that I'm able to do that.
Without a permit.
It didn't say.
I thought it said you could carry a gun with no permit.
The question is what do you think constitutional carry means?
Well, you mean according to them?
No.
That's according to you.
According to me, my constitutional right is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That means not getting shot at the grocery store.
No.
All right? So just don't ask me that question.
So the question is
what's the law?
I'm just saying, you're thinking that the law means that you just have the right to carry.
Right. Like your Second Amendment rights are being carried out.
But it's not really how the Second Amendment is really written, right? It's like people always say my Second Amendment right to carry.
Well, the word Constitution,
but it's not really.
But you have to have responsibility.
Yeah, it's still something more to that.
But it's so broad.
Right.
It's a broad language.
Right.
And that's what they use. So most people are thinking, I have the right to carry a gun, and they're trying to take this right away.
Right.
Then what they do is they create legislation that has more bullet points in it that had nothing to do with the constitutional carry or your right to carry a gun.
Okay.
Now what you've put into law is, now what we're going to say is that you don't have to have a permit.
So is this for concealed or open carry?
Well, if you don't have a permit,
you can have a gun on your person anywhere in the state of Texas.
That's what they're saying.
Okay.
Without a permit.
Has that been passed? Has that been passed?
Yes.
So I can now put a gun in my purse and be okay with that?
Everybody.
Really?
So there's
so
no,
that's the law now.
So you
I just
don't
didn't
have
understand.
to. I mean, if that's there's no
So
permit needed.
there's no permit
basically, I can
needed?
go into the
Right.
store, buy a gun, and I'm good. I can leave.
Absolutely.
Really?
Where when someone
Oh,
who
man.
had issues, who had a felony
Right.
or whatever that issue
And
was,
psychological
that
stuff.
Right.
psychological problems.
Right. Yeah, but then
You
think
can
of
still-
Philando Castile.
Yes.
So you
Right.
better off say no, and you cannot violate my Fourth
yes.
Amendment rights and
So
search
in
me.
this,
That's
this
a good
piece
question.
is, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Even students, it doesn't matter now.
Do you have to be 18? Do they at least give you that stipulation?
But
Permit.
did you have to
list.
be 60? You could
Wow.
have been younger,
Well,
right? If you had
that
a
is
shotgun and
terrible.
If you
pickup
don't
truck.
have to have a permit, how are they going to know what your age is?
So is
So-
this a real law?
I mean, if you're running
that
around
is
here,
nuts.
if, well, it used to be.
When did they sign this?
Oh,
I'm
they're
telling
working
you.
on it now.
We
I mean,
need to
it's-
move out of Texas.
It's past, yes. And here's the thing: it's the
Woo,
Wild Wild
it
West.
is the Wild Wild West.
Because basically what they did was it gave them an opportunity to at least be able to do a background check on someone who did not. Now
Right.
the other way that other people can, you
Uh-huh.
could go to a gun show though.
Okay.
Yes.
And that way
That's
was easier because
Yeah.
they didn't need to go through the whole process as you would if you went to a store.
So that was a loophole.
that was a loophole,
Mhm.
which I mean, it's almost like what you're going through now.
okay.
So if
You
you
have
don't
your black
to,
market.
if you don't have to
Wow.
have a permit, because normally there's certain places, ideally, you're not supposed to carry a gun, like maybe on college campuses, I think.
No, where you remember they had college campuses where they had a designated area
Right.
where they were telling them that they could have a gun.
And then
So it was
private
almost
property, they have a right to say no firearms on private property.
Yeah,
Right?
no, but in the schools they
Okay.
had a designated area
Oh my
where they were
goodness.
telling students that they could actually go to like
Give me a
you
break.
know, it's almost like the Wild Wild West.
Good Lord.
You got a little circle there, and we can
Right.
just go into this circle,
Wow.
and this is where we can do what we need to do.
Wow.
Which
That
made
doesn't
it's-
sound
it's
like
not.
this is a good thing.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. Tempers flare.
But,
But
here's
even
the
more
thing.
so, like if you don't have a
but
permit,
you're in the NRA, your National Rifle Association.
Now they're in Texas.
They're in-
lobbyists.
yeah,
Oh
right.
man.
They're pushing this because they keep telling people it's all about your right to own a gun.
Right.
Nobody's taking away the right,
Right.
but there definitely needs to be
Uh-huh.
responsibility. There definitely needs
Of
to
course.
be regulatory oversight.
Right.
You can't just let people just purchase these guns. Now, if you look at society right now, it's sort of hard to even imagine because where do you think they're getting these weapons
Right,
from
right.
in these neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm.
They have to get them off the black market.
Right.
I don't think that they were just going into grocery stores purchasing these things because
Right.
they had to go and get what they needed.
right.
But
So do you
on the black market,
Uh-huh. So do
they
you
have
think,
an entity
Uh-huh.
that should be monitoring this.
Right. Right.
However, a lot of the things that were created
Mm-hmm.
were not being utilized, like the database
Uh-huh.
that could put this into place where if you own this gun, we knew who it belonged to.
That's what my question is. Because
Right.
are they going to know who? If there's someone
Right.
goes
It
out
doesn't
and-
have to be registered anymore.
if it's not registered, so how do you know? How can you
Right.
follow the
Right.
bullets to find out who is
Right.
the person that did whatever?
Yeah.
So, but
Wow.
you're
We're
not
sitting
saying
here.
felons can carry a gun now.
Well, how,
Well, how are you gonna not? How are you,
You don't
gonna
have a
stop
permit.
that?
Okay,
Because
so
if
the
it's
question he
permitless,
asked
yeah.
was, if you're pulled over
Mm-hmm.
and the cop
And
asks
if
you
the-
if you have a firearm on you, he doesn't have to say, where's your permit for your gun?
Well, not if the bill says that you don't have to.
Okay, but that hasn't been signed yet, hasn't been passed yet, has it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where you come in.
Mhm.
But we don't want to get all...
Yeah, we don't. We, you
don't
know,
wanna get
because
off.
again,
Right.
it's gonna take a lot of looking at the pieces of the puzzle. What's
Uh-huh.
missing? Because I was reading that there is even a way where they know where they can find out where actually gunshot has been done.
Okay.
There is a system that they could use
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
that could tell what type of gun was shot, how far
Absolutely.
it was, and what type of, where to go.
Right.
they don't use these things. A lot of the databases, let's just even talk about like for the doctor database, the national practitioner database, or your healthcare, VAERS that for your vaccine injuries.
Right.
All of these databases that they have are not being utilized. So you gotta be very careful with this.
Right.
And when I come into office and when I do become governor, that is something that we're going to have to look at, because I do believe that people should have some sort of documentation, because there is no way that if there is an incident or someone gets killed on any surface of Texas, you'll be able to tell who it belongs to if there is no documentation.
And that affects
everybody. That's actually how they do their investigations.
Right.
I mean,
so I would think law enforcement would have an issue with this.
Well, I believe the law enforcement did, because it's going to make their life a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because
what about the Attorney General? I mean, they should have some issue.
Well, he's a part of the group that, goes with the crowd.
Yeah.
And a lot of things. And if you just think about the way that our elections were run, it's sort of like they always go with the crowd.
Do
you understand what I'm saying?
Which is so weird is that they were like, how in the hell was Ted Cruz elected? Help me understand. Nobody likes him. Nobody in his group likes him.
He better not get it now, since in Winter Storm he was going to Cancun.
He's a horrible person.
But here's
I'm sorry.
And that's the thing, is that we have people that
just go with the flow. You just go press, with the flow. Or else if people do the straight ticket.
But you got to
think about it. So that means anyone under that ticket gets it.
But you got to think about it again. It's not what we're looking at. It's all about power.
Right.
It's all about power.
So even now, in all of this, even though it may be wrong, and they know that it's missing some elements, and some elements need to be there, they don't care, because it's about power.
Right. They don't care. As long as they made, and this is why they kept someone like Trump in the office, because he kept them with the power that they needed. They didn't care all the horrible things he was doing, because he was allowing them to get a lot of things done. And so they didn't care how he acted. They didn't care about his behavior, because he was signing off on whatever they told him to sign off, and that kept them in power. And that's what goes on.
So as you can tell, we're going to have you to come back.
Oh, absolutely. Man. We haven't even scratched the surface.
The first Monday, we'll have you come back for sure, because there's other things that we need to discuss, and we can have you come back and definitely talk to us. So say some people want to start to volunteer, want to work with you on your campaign. How do they get in contact with you, and are you looking for volunteers?
Yes, we're always looking for volunteers. So the first place is go to gov.gov.com, and you can sign up there, and that will go straight to the volunteer section, and they can get in contact with anybody who wants to volunteer. They can follow me on social media. We're on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on
Instagram,
all the stuff,
and all of that. And I'm just asking that you just share the message.
Do you have a phone number for your campaign if anybody wants to call?
That is also on the website.
Perfect.
Everything is on the website that you can call and reach out to my campaign manager. She will definitely help you maneuver whatever it is that you need to get done.
Well, I hope that you're able to come back the first Monday of next month.
So that
way we can keep it on everybody's mind, because sometimes we forget and we get amnesia. So this way we can keep it on the forefront moving forward. So we can
consider yourself booked.
Well, thank you.
You're booked.
Thank you, and I just appreciate you so much for allowing me to be here.
We love to have you get involved.
We only got on a few topics. We got way more to do.
And that's just the surface.
I know. But, oh my goodness, I'm scared.
So guys, you get your questions ready for June, the first Monday in June, because Deirdre will be back.
I'll be back.
But we want to thank you guys for being part of the show.
She'll
be back. But
because if you want to see change, you really have to step into it, right?
So just like we have to ask every week, and please be part of this. We want to know, everybody out there, how you living? Take care.
Peace.